Hello everybody. It is time for me to give my review of the Durston Xmid Pro2 after my through hike of Te Araroa. So I spent about 45 nights in the tent, so I think I've got a pretty good idea of what it's like. So in this video, going to show you how easy it is to set up, hit some of the features, some of the issues I had with it, and then also how I wrapped it up at the end of the day. All right, so let's take a look at this. Okay, so first of all, got 8 stakes here, but I really only need 6 of them. So put those off the side. And there you have it. That easy. That easy to set it up. Um, People complain about being difficult, like if the ground is uneven. I didn't have any more problem than what you just saw there if the ground was uneven. The only issue might be that the sides might be touching the ground rather than up letting airflow. But other than that, it was pretty easy. So let me show you just some of the things that I like about this tent, and then show you some of the things maybe that could have been a little bit better. Some of the features of this tent, I didn't put this in, didn't really see a whole lot of need for this guy, but these are little stays. It's easier to do it when I got 2 hands. They have like a Velcro attachment, supposed to provide some ventilation. Again, New Zealand is such a wet environment that this kind of little ventilation is not going to keep you from having condensation. But, you know, it's a nice little feature. Inside, so the things I like about this tent big time are, of course, I love how the tent moves up out of the way, the door moves up out of the way. You've got these little rubber bands here that you can tie up and hold that out of the way if you want. Some inside pockets here on both sides. There's those inside pockets. Lots of room. Now it's a little bit dirty in here, and that corner could probably be a little bit tighter, but I'm not worried about that. Lot of headspace in here. Lot of headspace. I just love that aspect of this. There is a lot of space here in the vestibule area. And you bring this down, you get these magnet clips, which I like a little bit better than the toggles. You bring those down. I like the zipper better than the hooks that you see on other tents. And there's just a lot of space. People complain about the footprint of the tent being pretty large. I didn't see it as an issue. I might have to look a little bit more to find a little bit bigger space. But other than that, no big deals. I love the tent. Love the tent. Um, I got really no complaints. I did have some damage. Let's see, what damage did I have? Well, first of all, I don't know if I can find it that easily. So the first thing I had was a little hole here. And I got that one night when I was camped underneath a tree, and there's some sticks I didn't quite clear out, and I just poked a little hole, but put a little tenacious tape there, and then on the bottom, and that held fine, no problem. After that, I did get the ground sheet. Durston says you don't need a ground sheet, but I liked it. I did. It weighs next to nothing. I clipped it in, so I didn't have extra work that I had to do. I just got the ground sheet after I'd already been in the tent for a little bit. The other piece of damage that I had was the night I had the bad windstorm. So this little tab here, the night that that big windstorm came off, this is the only really damage that happened to my tent. So this tab is supposed to be attached to the bottom of the tent. The bottom of the trekking pole goes through that hole. Now, because I use the little baskets at the end, I attached that before I did it so it's not rubbing against the edge of the tent. And so I have repaired that now. This is a third repair. Ended up having to sew using dental floss to sew that, and that is going to hold. It doesn't touch the ground, so I'm not really worried about it being a water issue. And it's really not even a structural thing. It just kind of keeps the sides a little bit taut. But yeah, so that's it. When I tried to fix it at first and I couldn't fix it, I just used tape and the tape wouldn't stick. I would just put some gear right here, and that kind of kept the tent out. Inside, after that really bad windstorm, I did notice what looked like some stretching, and so I just kind of reinforced that with some of the tape that you can get from Durston. That little piece coming down, yeah, that I reinforced that one. I think that was about the only place I felt like I needed to reinforce. I'm getting ready to throw some water on this to see if there's any leaks after all that use. One of the things I love about this tent, the Dyneema fabric doesn't soak up the water at all. Just kind of runs right off. Where like those nylon tents, they will kind of soak up the water and get pretty heavy. All right, that's a pretty good raining. Let's take a look now inside to see if any water is leaking on the inside of it. Man, I really enjoyed this tent. All right, looking inside, and there's no water whatsoever. So yeah, the tent stayed really nice and dry. I don't think I ever had rain that heavy. We did have some heavy rain at times, but man, it was always dry on the inside. There is one aspect of this tent that I think they could do better, and that's the stuff bag that they have for the tent. Now, I do like that it's not a super tight a bag where you got to really cram it in there. I heard someone talk about that's what wears out the fabric, is that constant sliding back and forth in a really tight stuff sack. But so that's nice that they don't do that. But I did have that, and I've had other stuff sacks do this before, where you can see where the top is kind of ripped a little bit, and it's no big deal really. But the the string, the pull string, is kind of come around. So I think I can probably tape that up, but that doesn't feel super sturdy. That's about the only thing I found negative of this whole tent. There was one issue that I had with the tent. It happened probably about halfway down the North Island, and initially when I started, didn't have the problem, but I started noticing condensation under anything that was laying on the floor of my tent. And first I thought, well, it was just kind of a really wet night. But then I did some reading on the Durston Facebook page, and someone had the same issue. And I think it was even Dan himself who said that, yeah, there was some of the tents didn't have the floor of the tent treated properly. So to his credit, he told the person, hey, send the tent in, we'll sort it out for you. But I'm over here in New Zealand, he's in Canada, or States, wherever. I think it's Canada. And yeah, it wasn't going to happen for me. But when I came home at Christmas time, I did get the tent out and the footprint, and I sprayed the outside of both of them, the bottom, with that spray that you can put on a tent to kind of give its waterproofness back. Of course, you don't have to worry about that with the Dyneema, but the floor, I did that all on the outside of the tent of the floor of the tent, and the footprint. And never had another issue again with that kind of thing after that. So again, I don't know that that's a Durston tent problem. I think I might have just got one of those tents that didn't get treated properly. It also could have been just a weather thing, because the North Island is certainly a lot wetter than the South Island. But I do know that once I treated the floor and the footprint, I never had that condensation problem with stuff underneath that had been laying on the floor of my tent. So they've done some new stuff with the new tents coming out. I think they've made one version of them a little bit bigger, which, man, that's, I mean, this is great size for two men. I'm going to put a couple of my sleeping pads in just to show you what it looks like if you have two larger than average sleeping pads in there. But so they are doing some upgrades all the time, which is what I really love about Durston. They don't just settle in on one thing. They're constantly listening to what people are saying and upgrading. I really have uh, no concerns about the tent that I would say, hey, this is what you need to do. People say there's not enough pockets inside, but there's so much space in there. I just put stuff around the edges of the tent, and that was fine. Okay, let me put some sleeping pads in there just to give you an idea what that looks like, and then we'll see if there's any final comments. Okay, let's talk sleeping pads. So in here right now, got two sleeping pads, the Thermarest, which I used on the TA, and then a Sea to Summit, which that was my first sleeping pad. I really enjoyed it, really comfortable, but not as warm. But you can see these are both wide versions, and there's just not the room in that at all. Not for two wide sleeping pads. And so now I've swapped out the Sea to Summit with the first Thermarest that I bought. I used that like one night. That's the old version. I got a really special deal, and man, it's super loud. This is the updated version. It's a lot better. But that's a regular size. That's not the wide. And you can see that there's room. If you have one wide and one regular side by side, there's room in there if that's the setup that you have. And still a lot of room at your feet, and still a lot of room under the vestibule. So this could be a two-man tent if you don't mind being close to somebody.
Good morning. I did that video yesterday of the tent, you know, all the setting up and all the evaluation and all that. And then I got thinking, yeah, it's up. Might as well use it. So I slept out in it last night. Got kind of cold, but it was kind of fun, sleeping back out in the tent again. I do kind of miss that. I really do. So I'm going to do one last part, and that's how I folded it up at the end of the day. And I'm doing this because I watched a video when I first got the Durston tent. Some guy had a video how he folds a tent, and it was amazing. I mean, it was you almost need an engineering degree to follow what he was doing, but it was pretty cool. But it was just too much, and so I over time just kind of figured out the best way for me to fold it up. I mean, you probably have your own way. There's the big debate: do you just stuff a Dyneema tent in the stuff sack, or do you fold it up? And it looks like at this point the consensus is it's better to fold them up. So I'll just kind of show you how I folded it, and might give you some ideas, and it might be just kind of something you end up watching at the end of this video. All right, let's do this.
my end evaluation of this tent is I just love the tent. I love it. It was super to have it on the TA. There are actually quite a few people on the TA with this tent. I think MSR here in New Zealand was probably the most popular tent because it's easy to get here in New Zealand. But saw a lot of Durstons and of course a lot of Z-Packs as well. But I love the Durston. If you're thinking about it, I feel like it's certainly the best tent out there for this kind of hiking. But that's my limited experience. So there you go. If you have any questions about the tent, just again, as I always say, just put them in the comments and I'll try and get to them as soon as I possibly can. All right, see you next time.